You had a speculation there which was very fascinating. You floated the idea that the development of Homo sapiens might at some point in deep history have had interstellar assistance, perhaps. At some point, you were referencing a study that showed that there is a 14.9 total genetic difference between chimps and humans. And you said that we should study this difference to see if maybe there was some kind of interstellar assistance or whatever you want to call it. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Well, there are two things to consider potentially when we study our history on Earth. One is we tend to think that we are first. Okay, so we are the first to develop advanced technologies. But that may not be true. There may have been, if you go back 100 million years, 200 million years, there may have been a civilization that is fairly advanced, and then there was some catastrophe like a meteor impact, an asteroid impact, like the one that killed the dinosaurs, right? So if there was a major extinction event, it would have destroyed that civilization if it happened hundreds of millions of years ago. And by the way, 200 million years ago, that's just 5% of the age of the Earth. So instead of us appearing 100% the age of the Earth, it was 95%. That's, I think, completely plausible that intelligence could have emerged or technology could have emerged earlier, by 5% earlier. And then if there was some catastrophe, either they kill themselves, as we are trying to do very on a daily basis, either through a world war or through a climate change or whatever they did. By the way, I'm never worried about Earth. Earth can always survive. Yeah. It's humanity that you have to worry about, because Earth went through a lot of catastrophes.
Yes.
And so at any event, Earth recovered. Eventually, life continued for other species. And the question is whether there was an intelligent technological civilization before us, hundreds of millions of years ago. And it would be difficult to find the remains if it was localized, and if the materials, I mean, the buildings, the digital screens, whatever they produced, might be buried under the surface of the Earth, because there was a lot of geological activity since then. And who knows what this catastrophe did also. So that's one question. Are we really the first one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And of course, if they had satellites, or if they produced technological objects that are around us today that represent technologies well beyond what we possess, that may appear as unidentified anomalous phenomena. These are things that we don't fully understand because they are not natural, they're technological, and
theory,
they somehow survived. They somehow survived, and we can find them if we are sufficiently open-minded. But the second possibility that you mentioned is that we were visited. Again, that's not an original idea. That a lot of people raise the question of how did the Egyptians build the pyramids, and how did the...
Tell me about it. Yeah, this is a rabbit hole that I've been diving
So
into.
at any event, there is this possibility that even the human genome was somehow planted by an interstellar gardener that visited the Earth and put it, made some modifications to the DNA of chimpanzees. And one way to find out is to see some abrupt change in the history of the DNA, if we can trace it.
Well, are you familiar with chromosome number 2, for instance, which is a bit strange? It looks as if it had been fused from two chromosomes.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on these matters, but I think it's very interesting to do the equivalent of archaeology in the context of genetic dating and history of the human genome. One thing that is widely believed, is that all forms of life on Earth originated from a common ancestor. It's called Luca, the last universal common ancestor. And by the way, this one as well could have been delivered from Mars on a rock, because Mars is a smaller body, had a larger surface area per unit mass. So, usually the amount of heat when you make an object is proportional to the mass, and the loss of heat from the object is proportional to the surface area. So a small object is losing more quickly the heat contained inside of it. So Mars cooled before Earth because it's smaller than Earth. And it could have been the case that Mars developed life before Earth, and that then life came from Mars to Earth in a rock. That
NASA just the other day announced that they had found life on Mars.
Well, they found signatures that are
quote unquote life,
with microbial activity.
Signature, yeah.
But to figure out whether it's not geological, what they need is to bring a sample back to Earth. And of course, now it's a good timing for them to advocate that, because there are budget cuts, and NASA needs a boost to the science program. And my hope is that this will be funded, because then when these materials that were collected by the Perseverance rover are delivered to Earth, and if we find out within the coming decade that definitely there were microbes on Mars, which sounds very reasonable since it had liquid water, had lakes, oceans, rivers, just like Earth, then there will be a second place that we find life. And it would give a boost to the search for extraterrestrial life. But for me, as far as I'm concerned, microbes are boring compared to intelligent beings, because we can learn from intelligent beings much more, and it would change a lot of things for us in our future, and we could develop new technologies that we've never dreamed of, and learn new science that we've never studied if we discover extraterrestrial intelligence.